Hello my friends, it's Tom Hatsis, and thank you for coming to my Tom Talk. Recently, conservative commentator Michael Knowles testified before Congress on the topic of political violence. During the conversation, Senator Josh Hawley turned somber and recalled the tragic loss of Charlie Kirk. This turned the conversation away from violence against conservatives broadly to violence against conservative Christians more specifically. Hawley cites the 2024 statistics from the Center for Religious Liberty, which had cataloged 415 cases of attacks against Christians, or symbols of Christianity. Things like vandalizing churches, statues, stained glass windows, things like that. Now listen carefully to Knowles' answer.
And there is no doubt, Senator, that the attacks, widespread and increasing, on churches, and two of the most prominent that come to my mind recently, the Covenant school shooting, in which a trans-identifying killer massacred Christian children when they were at school, and of course the Annunciation school shooting, another coincidentally trans-identifying shooter killing school children. The fact that these were shootings related to churches, related to faith, is no coincidence at all.
You wouldn't be wrong to be concerned by Knowles' answer. Both left and right-wing influencers use numerical abstractions to cause outrage that only further divides we the people. In this video, I'd like to show how Michael Knowles uses the same numerical abstractions to cause right-wing outrage over violence against Christians as the Washington Post uses to cause left-wing outrage over police shootings. But first, if you're into this kind of content, please give this video a like and a share and subscribe to the channel. Or if you're watching or reading this on my Substack and find value in the content, please consider becoming a paid supporter. That said, let's get into it. In this instance, Knowles is using the numbers to engage in one of his usual pastimes, and that is painting trans people in the worst light imaginable. Look, I have my issues with the gender narrative, which I detail in my latest book, but I also recognize that I live in America, and I fully support any adult to live their life any way they choose. So long as they aren't hurting anybody, it's really not Knowles or mine or anyone else's business. But here, for Knowles to say that both the shooters were trans-identified doesn't actually make his point. I can prove a totally different point simply by selecting any two other cases. In May 2023, 58-year-old Eric Dwayne Rydenor set fire to two historically significant churches in Douglas, Arizona, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church and First Presbyterian Church. During the trial, the U.S. Attorney's Office presented evidence that Rydenor targeted the churches because of their leadership roles welcoming women, LGBT, and TQ+ members. Witnesses testified that Rydenor opposed those liberal doctrines, and he even quoted Bible verses in court to justify his actions. In other words, Rydenor is a Christian. Likewise, Eamon Penny firebombed a church in Chesterland, Ohio in 2023. However, his actions were not against Christians. Penny was a member of a radical right-wing group, White Lives Matter, which harbors both pro-Nazi and anti-homosexual views. The attack was motivated by Penny trying to protect children and stop the drag show event that was scheduled at the church. While those of us with a conscience can understand not wanting to sexualize children through drag shows, this was not a case of anti-Christian bias. Penny is himself a Christian of some kind. In fact, in a letter written to both the White Lives Matter group and another group of racist idiots called Blood Tribe, Penny exclaims, "The fire shall rise, and God's fury shall be remembered by all." I mean, my God, in another life he would have been screaming Allahu Akbar. Point is, by placing these two cases in a vacuum, I can make just as strong a point, or really more just as weak a point, as does Michael Knowles. And that is that Christians target LGBT and TQ+ people. Now, obviously that's not true, but neither is it true that Christians are uniquely targeted for slaughter by trans people. And there is more. When we look at the cases presented by the CRL, few of them have much to do with overt attacks against Christians simply for their Christianity. The majority are senseless acts of vandalism committed by homeless and or mentally unwell people who have no motive to attack the faith. Examples include Randy Maldonado Avila, who in June 2024 attacked statues and church property outside Brooklyn using a hammer. Could this be an attack against Christian symbolism? Well, not so fast. Maldonado Avila also took his hammer to 2 MTA bus shelters and a traffic light. He wasn't attacking the church. He was a mentally unhealthy man with a hammer looking for a nail. In Redlands, California, December 2024, John Doe smashed 3 statues causing $20,000 in damage. Local coverage called it vandalism. Even the church staff did not think the attack was religiously motivated, suggesting the man seemed to be going through something in his personal life. No hate crime was designated by the police, although the investigation is still open. Further, Knowles' use of the CRL numbers isn't as airtight as he thinks it is. In fact, despite a Fox newscast claiming that anti-Christian attacks were up,
a growing problem in the United States with the number of hostile attacks against Christians skyrocketing.
The CRL's own report says that they are down. Perhaps most disconcerting, these are the same tactics used by the Washington Post to inflate its police shooting statistics database, which fuels BLM riots. When one goes through the Post's database, one finds that some of the cases marked as an unarmed killing of a Black American man is far more nuanced. For example, the Post counts an elderly Black man accidentally shot by the police during urban crossfire as evidence of racist policing. But when we cross-check the story, we get the full picture. A robbery suspect was fleeing from the police and firing his gun at them. The police fired back, inadvertently killing the elderly man. Also counted as unarmed is when a suspect is literally beating an officer with that officer's own equipment, like a radio or a nightstick, or when the suspect reaches for the officer's service weapon. Is that really unarmed? Of course not. The Post is merely using numerical abstractions to cause division. This lack of nuance regarding how hate crimes are counted and then presented by influencers, either right-wing or left-wing, only ignites more tension and unease on the street level. If Christians believe that they are under attack for their faith, as implied by Knowles and Hawley, and Black Americans believe that they are targeted for their skin tone by the police, as implied by the Washington Post and BLM, we only further divide we the people. On a personal note, my following on Instagram has recently seen a welcomed increase. Many of my new followers seem to lean either from moderate conservative to roundly conservative. And I imagine some of them are Michael Knowles fans and are not going to take kindly to this video. With someone like me who is just now slowly building a following, there is a tendency to speak to the side that is giving us more support. But I'm not going to speak to one side or the other. I'm going to speak to the truth. Speaking to one side over the other is how we got into this divisive mess in the first place. If we want to get beyond that, we must acknowledge that our current struggle is not really one political side against another. It's common sense and moral decency against confusion and selfishness. Well, my friends, that's all I have for you this time, and I'd love to thank you for stopping by. If you found value in this content, please let me know by leaving a comment or sharing it or subscribing. And until we meet again, I'm Tom Hatsis, reminding you that you free your mind by using your brain. Peace.